It's always important to remember who we are as Kiwanians and how we got here. So let's do a brief history review. Kiwanis was formed in 1915 to gather some businessmen together to get group insurance rates. This also provided an opportunity for business networking. They put together articles of association for the legal purposes, but beyond that there were few formal goals or guidelines. Then Kiwanis founder Alan Brown presented the motto, "Service brings its own reward," and presented the Kiwanis Creed, which contained 12 very wordy articles that gave somewhat of a guideline. At the first International Convention in 1918, delegates approved the first Constitution, which referred to a group of underlying policies. These were the first objects of Kiwanis. The 1919 convention saw the adoption of more formal policies emphasizing the spiritual qualities of character like courage, imagination, integrity, vision, faith, and hope. In 1920, the original motto, "We Build," was adopted. In 1923, Kiwanis decided they needed a more concise and focused constitution, so they formed a constitutional committee to draft it. The committee worked on the project for an entire year, and the 1924 convention saw the adoption of a major revision of the Constitution. As part of that Constitution, Article 2 laid out 6 revised policies. These policies are what we now know as the objects of Kiwanis. In 1925 and 26, the board expanded the policies to include vocational guidance for young men and women and an objective to create a professional standard for businesses and business professional people. 1926-27 saw the change of wording from policies to objectives. In subsequent years, each board added and subtracted objectives and refined the goals of the organization, but the original 6 objects remained the same. The objects of Kiwanis are stated in a specific order, and though there are 6 of them, they're not numbered, as all are equal in importance and each can stand on its own value. We'll take them in the order presented. The first object of Kiwanis: to give primacy to the human and spiritual rather than to the material values of life. Much discussion of this came about after the drafting of the object in 1923. The committee's big concern was about the use of the word spiritual. Some felt that the word should be replaced with ethical. New York Governor Lou Mitchell, the author of the object, explained that this was not intended to be a religious reference. Then International President Perry Patterson agreed. He stated that spiritual has nothing to do with theology, but instead speaks to the qualities of mankind, like courage, imagination, integrity, vision, faith, hope. He stated that not everyone believes in the Creator, but anyone can be spiritual. He felt it was the duty of churches to deal with man's relationship to the Creator, and Kiwanis's duty is to deal with man's relationships to man. Thus, the committee approved the simple but direct statement that this object made. It is tied so closely to our mission of service, first to the human and the spiritual, to give primacy to the human and spiritual rather than the material values of life. The next object was probably the easiest one to add to this list: to encourage the daily living of the Golden Rule in all human relationships. The concept of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you goes back into ancient history, around 2000 to 1600 BC, when in Egypt it was stated, "Now this is the command, do to the doer to make him do." Much later, in the 600 to 300 BC era, a reference has been found that says, "That which you hate to be done to you, do not do to another." That statement was taken from the negative point of view, but it does state the rule. The earliest usage of the Golden Rule, or the Golden Law, as we know it, is from the Anglican Church in Britain, as theologians and preachers started to use the phrase widely. This began around 1604 AD. Today, the thought is used worldwide. Although the phrasing changes from one user to another, the sentiment always remains the same, so it's only natural that the Golden Rule would be included as part of our Kiwanis fabric, to encourage the daily living of the Golden Rule in all human relationships. It should be noted that part of the job that the Constitution Committee agreed upon early in their discussions was the idea that each of the objects should all be stated in one sentence, making them easier to remember. The subject of general conduct and bearing was high on the committee's minds when they brought this object to the table for discussion. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards. Alan Brown's original Kiwanis Creed made a lot of references to business practices and ethics, as part of the general direction of Kiwanis at the time was leaning toward trade rather than service. Most of his 12 articles had some reference to those two items. He was concerned that Kiwanis should be viewed as being an above-reproach organization whose standards would never be questioned. The committee agreed with that sentiment, but wanted to consolidate his thoughts. As with the other objects, the phrasing today seems a bit formal and stilted, but the words and their sentiments still ring true today. To promote the adoption and the application of higher social, business, and professional standards. Throughout man's history, it has become a standard thought that good citizenship fosters better communities. People's concerns for the welfare of others have bonded them together, noting that others have the same needs and desires as they do. To develop by precept and example a more intelligent, aggressive, and serviceable citizenship. Early in the Kiwanis history, even while the debate continued discussing whether we should emphasize trade or service, all agreed that Kiwanis should represent a higher standard. Its members should present to the world a unified front of upstanding good citizens. It became the daily goal to constantly provide examples of this good citizenship through visible acts of service, always striving to improve our world for everyone. Members were encouraged to always be on the alert for service opportunities, and when identified, to seek ways that Kiwanis could successfully serve those needs. And early on, Kiwanians started emphasizing assistance of underprivileged children. Living up to this object has continued to this day as we serve the children of the world. To develop by precept and example an intelligent, aggressive, and serviceable citizenship. Humans are a social entity. We seek out the companionship of others. It gives us a societal bond. Not only can we do more as a group, but having friends gives us a warmth of satisfaction and the knowledge that the lives of others can parallel ours and be of great benefit. To provide through Kiwanis Clubs a practical means to form enduring friendships, to render altruistic service, and to build better communities. You may note the objects tend to overlap in their goals, and this one focuses on becoming close to other Kiwanians, as the closeness and friendship facilitates an easy working relationship with others to achieve common goals. When the group of friends get together, they become a strong team with many ideas and solutions for identified needs. In Alan Brown's Kiwanis Creed, he recognized that one of the greatest assets of all is our friends, and that we should take advantage of any of these friendships to achieve common goals. How many times have you heard someone say, "I don't have that answer, but I do know someone who does"? Friendship and service are natural partners. The familiarity of one's working partners makes it so much easier to find common ideas and solutions. A better community becomes a natural result. To provide through Kiwanis Clubs a practical means to form enduring friendships, to render altruistic service, and to build better communities. To cooperate in creating and maintaining that sound public opinion and high idealism which makes possible the increase of righteousness, justice, patriotism, and goodwill. Once again, the objects interlock in purpose. This object tends to be a summary of the other five. If we put priority on the human and spiritual, if we abide by the golden rule, if we hold high standards in our social, business, and professional lives, if we serve by setting a higher example, if we foster enduring friendships, and if we regularly work together, better communities and better lives for all will be the result. In Kiwanis' 25th year, International Trustee Thomas L. Husselton wrote, "There could be no stronger proof of the soundness of our objects than the fact that the customs and mores of the people could change so much yet the objects could continue to serve so well. This quarter-century test has shown that they cannot be improved because they are so fundamental. 25 years later, then Kiwanis Magazine managing editor David Williams noted, "The objects helped chart the early course of Kiwanis, helped give the organization direction and guidance along the way. Today, they remain an inspiration and a beacon for any of us who choose to rediscover them, to cooperate in creating and maintaining that sound public opinion and high idealism which makes possible the increase of righteousness, justice, patriotism, and goodwill."